Welcome to the Explain It podcast. I'm your host, Ingryd Hernandez. Today we have a very special guest. I think I always say that, but for reals, all my guests are super special. He has an amazing story. Like when I learned about his story, I'm just like, wow, that is a story of perseverance and one of, wanting to do more. It's so cool. I hope you find it inspiring. And really how creative finance, you can do cool shit with so many things. Today we're going live at 5 p.m., which I know we've normally do these podcasts at 1 p.m. Arizona time, but we're going to try out 5 p.m. Arizona time going forward so that folks can come and join after they're done with work. They don't have to, figure their hours out in terms of lunch. And so hopefully we'll have a bigger audience once people realize that we're having this podcast a little bit later. So remember, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your enemies, whoever, that our podcast has now moved to 5 p.m. So anybody you know who would stand to gain value of being here at 5 p.m. Arizona time every Wednesday, I'd really, truly appreciate it. So don't forget to like and subscribe, all the good things. And with that, I want to bring up Mr. Chris Fitch. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing really well. I was so blown away by your story. People had been talking about you, but like I didn't know who you were. And then I think that one of the first times I got to listen to your story, I think it was I don't, were you an owners club or maybe it was a squad up? I'm trying to remember where I heard your story. I go to so many of these events that I don't remember where I was at. So, but you've told it probably everywhere.
Yeah, so I actually had the opportunity to give a roughly 2.5 minute speech on a little bit about my background and how I came up at the Owners Club retreat in Monterey. And then Pace invited me back to speak at a noob challenge. And that's when I think I was live with like a couple thousand Zoom webinar folks and then a couple hundred people live in the studio. So that was pretty special for me to share what I've done, what I've been through, where I'm at now, and where we're headed.
That's so cool. So tell me, well, I tell the whole audience, like, who are you and what do you focus on in this creative space?
So my name's Chris Fitch, and what I focus on primarily is aircraft utilizing the BRRRR strategy. So I'm still a real estate investor. I do a lot of land deals up here in Texas, and I made it through a few BRRRR deals on the residential side, and I have a lot of airplane experience. So I was, tossing some ideas around. I was like, hell, let's just burn airplanes, see if it works. 30 airplanes later, here we are.
So you've done it with 30 or you own 30?
We're right around 30 airplanes now in less than a year and a half.
Wow. Holy smokes. That's crazy. And are these planes you keep or planes you wholesale?
No, primarily we keep them. So I try to put them on long-term net leases. For me, cash flow is king, and I am quite literally trying to build a fleet of 1,000 of these.
Wow. So if you're trying to build a fleet of 1,000 and you just cleared 30, and obviously you're doing 30 and learning at the same time. So how, like, you did 30 in would you say a year?
A
So,
little over a year and a half.
okay. So then you think you could probably do 30 or 40 in a matter of a year going
Oh
forward
yeah.
because now you got it.
The the real key here is figuring out what your constraints are and focusing solely on those constraints. So, with all businesses, you're looking at your labor, your material, or your cost. So, in my particular case, it's the cost. What is my cost of capital, and how do I access it for as cheap as possible? So, I'm heavily focused on what we call my WAC, my weighted average cost of capital, and I try to reduce that as much as possible on a daily basis.
Wow. Okay. Um, so let's turn it back a little bit. And I would love to actually know your numbers. So, like, how much one plane could like technically produce you? once you've done this BRRRR method. But before we get to that super exciting information, tell us, how did you get started in planes, and maybe talk a little. From what I recall, like I think you didn't even know what your real last name was for a bit or something like that. I don't know. It was crazy.
Yeah, so I grew up in a little town called Casa Grande, and it's right in between Tucson and Phoenix, and it's also right in between two Indian reservations.
Mhm.
So historically, that has been like a huge drug town. Tons of crime,
Mhm.
tons of gang banging, tons of thuggery, and that's how I grew up. I actually grew up in a very big Mexican family. I'm half white, half Mexican. I didn't know the white side of my family though, so I grew up as Christopher Kent de Leon. I didn't know my name was Kent Christopher Fitch until I turned 16 when I got my driver's license. So my whole childhood, I thought I had a completely different name. So I truly didn't know who I really was. So typical, Mexican family, the men usually get the last name tattooed on their back. And that's what I did at 14. I got a giant tattoo, shoulder blade to shoulder blade, that says De Leon. And we're talking some serious real estate here. I mean, fucking massive, about 18 inches wide, 12 inches long. I mean,
Wow. Is it still back there?
yeah, it'll probably be back there for another 80 or so. It's not going
I didn't
anywhere.
know if maybe they've gotten really good at like putting other art on top of it so that it looks a little bit, you know, conspicuous, if you will. But I don't know if that's what you were planning to.
Culturally, I'm pretty Hispanic. I actually like it there, to be honest with you. Maybe one day
Okay.
I'll actually legally change my name to De Leon, but for now it's still Fitch, which is not tattooed on me anywhere.
That's funny. Okay. Well, so you were influenced in maybe a tough upbringing. It's really funny because I'm actually from Chandler, Arizona. I mean, I was born in Columbia, but I've been here since I was 10. And then when I tell people, in fact, I have to show this. I'm wearing shoes I wasn't allowed to wear. These shoes are
Adidas.
I wasn't allowed to wear these shoes because there was just so many gangbangers that around me, and those were shoes that the gangs wore, right? Like you got the cheesers, and then you had like everybody was a cheeser where I was at. The Crips were the other ones, and so we had to be very careful what you were allowed to wear. I still remember this is like sixth grade, by the way, or fifth and sixth grade, San Marcos Elementary School, and you had to be super careful. So I totally understand that. I still even remember going into like my seventh grade bus, and for the first time in my life I saw what cocaine was. Like people, I had this girl who had a compact, which is like, the thing that you put like your hair or your on your skin and whatever, and she was doing that in the bus, and I was in seventh grade. Just crazy. But so I understand, like, that's a very strong influence. I don't know how I came out of that and not really been taken down by it, if you will, because it was all around me. So kudos to you for kind of reinventing yourself. So now you did go through some trial and tribulations. I don't know if you want to share some of that, and kind of showcase to people that like getting into this really cool asset class is like like don't give yourself any excuses. It doesn't matter what background you come from, what you have been in the past. It's all about who you're becoming.
Yeah, and it really drove that nail home. Yesterday, a friend of mine, he's my mentor, very, very high net worth cat. He sent me an email essentially uh, on a coaching topic of creating mountain climbers instead of people trying to move mountains out of your way for an easier path. He absolutely solidified the fact that you need to have grit, tenacity, and consistency in whatever it is that you do. And it really drove it home that I'm on the right path. I have compounding 15 years of experience on the aviation side. It would be an absolute waste of all of that experience to drive down another path. So, what I'm saying here to your audience is that I utilized 15 years of knowledge from a technical expertise. I'm an absolute expert on the aviation side, but I also got pretty good at real estate investing. And I merged the two together to be able to climb specific mountains that most folks can't.
Mm, I love that. It's interesting because I recently had a conversation with someone who has had self-storage experience for a good 23 years, was learning real estate, through the communities that we're in. And she was like, "Yeah, I'm just leaving and I'm going to co-living." And I was like, "Why?" And she had a tougher relationship with where she came from, and was kind of breaking away from the business because it was driven by that experience. And I told her, I was like, "Wait a second, but do you not like the industry? Is it something that you like you couldn't see yourself continuing in?" And she's like, "No, I actually really like it, but I just don't see how I could break into it." And I was like, "Well, what's holding you back?" And she's like, "Well, the money to get into a deal." And I was like, "So that's what's holding you back? Like, you know how to underwrite them, you would know how to manage them and operate them." She's like, "Yeah, I wouldn't say she consults, but she has visibility to all the things self-storage people do and whether or not they're good or bad operators because of where she sits as a vendor." And so because of that, she's like, "Yeah, I would know what a good deal is." And I was like, "Bro, if all you need is money, then I'm your girl. Like, we could figure out the money part. That's not even the mountain to climb." The part your 23 years of experience is what it makes you uniquely qualified to go after that type of asset class. So, it's just been interesting to see how what some of us see as really obvious, when you're in it, it's not as obvious to the person experiencing it. It's crazy.
It really is crazy. And what I equate this to is people really coming all the way down to a super micro level and never zooming out to see the full picture. And that's kind of where I like to sit is a macro level to make sure I see all the soldiers on the field and where I can put those soldiers to suit me best. And when I say soldiers, I'm talking about my money. Every dollar I have is a little soldier out at war for me that continues to fight 24/7, 365.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay. So now you're building this huge vision of what you want to do with this fleet of planes, using a lot of your history of, your aviation history and what you learned in real estate. Um, like, what are you doing to build that opportunity for yourself? Is there any way that people in the audience could participate or at least help you, establish that dream?
Yeah, absolutely. And when I first dropped that video with Pace Morby like 3 or 4 months ago, I got hundreds of thousands of views and I got hundreds and hundreds of airplane deals submitted to sub2planes.com. And it was an absolute game changer to get proprietary deal flow like that. And we've capitalized on the acquisitions, the leases, the acquisition and the lease in a same transaction purchase. So Sub Two, this book right here, guys, Wealth Without Cash, written by Pace Morby. Uh, it absolutely applies to everything. I'm literally buying a business based off of the teachings of this book that's already cash flowing. Seller's doing 100% loan to value, zero money down, and he's doing an earnout. It's insane what you can learn when you go off into the community and ask. So to answer your question, Ingrid, yes, absolutely. You guys can hop in on this. I actually just started a coaching program. I took on 6 mentees and I'm running them through an entire deal front to back. And by the end of that course, the requirement is to have an airplane under management. And it's to teach them how to climb this mountain so they get over the fear of the unknown to the known. And then they duplicate my process. All right. Very important for you guys to understand this. If you don't know how to do something, find someone that does and duplicate their process. Don't try to iterate their process until you've duplicated it, because you come back to people like me and Ingryd and say, hey, that shit doesn't work. Well, let's figure out where you fucked this up, because I promise you, you didn't follow the process. And then you go on YouTube and Instagram and leave little comments, and you start talking shit and leaving negative comments. And it's like, well, let's do a little audit here. We said do step 1 through 10, and you did step 1 through 2 and decided to go your own path, and then you never made it to 10. So let's put a little Alex Hormozy in this and duplicate before we iterate. And that's exactly.
I like to call it R&D, rip off and duplicate. So
yes, exactly.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so this is your website. I love that you have like bird dog up here, because I have so many bird doggers right now. In fact, like I may even have to change the feedback of how quickly we will get back to them, because I have so many deals in the pipeline that I'm like, okay, it's going to take me more than 1 or 2 days to get back to people, especially when you have these bigger assets, as people are sending me RV parks and mobile home parks. But this is cool. So they come here and they can get a free investment guide. So this is you giving value, and this is just a way for them to get some collateral from you right away. So tell me, so a little bit about this. What it says, so you've closed $2.4 million worth of deals. So the 30 planes equal the 2.4, or does 2.4 need to be updated?
No, that 2.4 needs to be updated. So these numbers are continuously changing. Like I literally closed on another 4 airplanes this week.
That's fantastic. Wow. That's crazy. Like you have to continue to pay for an update just because you're doing so many deals. So tell me, what is this here? The spot and capture, rapid analysis, and immediate payout. What are these?
Yeah, the spot and capture is essentially a fancy way of saying, hey, you're the bird dog. If you find the airplane, capture it, get the tail number, submit it to me. The rapid analysis is our quick turnaround time to get eyes on the deal, yay or nay, get it back to you. And if we buy it, we pay you very quickly through an official closing process. So just like real estate, we use a title company. Never in a million years am I going to wire you money directly, or I'm going to have you wire me money directly. For one, it doesn't coordinate with GAAP, our accounting process. We use an accrual-based accounting method. And the reason I bring this up is because I truly plan on being an enterprise value company. So we're doing everything in conformity with GAAP accounting. So from day one, we're trying to do everything by the book. Number two, it's safe for me and for you. There's no he said, she said. There's always an intermediary involved. And then the title company is always they're just totally unbiased. They do exactly what both parties agreed to.
I love that. Very cool. What would say? Ivan Reed wrote, knowledge and experience are never wasted because it trains success reflex. You become aware of how to identify successful patterns, even in the new field, and make the connections. I love that. Very good.
Yes, Ivan. Yes.
So I love that you laid down the gap, because I used to be a control and compliance analyst, and I knew that right away, right? When you said gap, I go, I know what this stands for. So as an analyst, we constantly had to your point, we actually did the accrual based. We were a publicly traded property business. And so we had to accrue what we believe was going to be the entries for the following month, while we were waiting for receivables and stuff like that. So it's funny. It's funny. It brought me back to my accounting days so long ago. Okay. So, and then the immediate payout, was it? This is just you kind of walking through what this looks like. And then the average commission is 12 grand.
That's what it's been currently. And that number has increased. I just sold a $2 million jet. So there was some commissions paid out on that as well. I made a YouTube video for some bird dogs on a Falcon 50. A friend of mine asked me to sell his jet. We made some content around it. gained a lot of interest, a lot of eyeballs on it, and a buyer got brought to me. There were some NDAs that got signed, so I can't be very specific with the particulars, but I can say somebody from this community got freaking paid.
That's awesome. Okay, I want that to be me next. So, so it says active acquisition fund. Are you actually running a fund to buy these planes?
That's correct. So I have a debt fund, and guys, what that means is I have money in an account that I continue to pay interest on 24/7, 365. So I'm liquid. That means I can go in and buy an airplane day one, and I can close based off of how aggressive I want to be. So liquidity is super important in what I do. Sub two on an airplane, it works. But when you're growing at the level that we're growing at, cash is king. There's just no way around it. I wish I could tell you guys that sub two is the number one way to get deals in this space. But for me, that I can't lie and say that's been true for me. I do sub two aircraft a lot, but my number one acquisition model is cash. And it's because I get the deepest discount and the quickest transaction.
Yeah. I think that's a fair thing to say, especially, we had Mike Davis on the podcast and he talked through the vehicle process of having a vehicle subdued, which presumably somewhat similar in process, obviously different asset. And, you have to do a little bit of a different arrangement. Like, a house isn't going to just get up and go, but a car does. And so I think he had instructed you want to put kill switches on your vehicles so that if somebody stops performing and they're defaulting, that you can literally stop them from turning the vehicle back on, and they're aware and you're aware that that's going to happen, along with being able to track where it is. Again, a house is not going to just get up and go. And so those are different things that you don't have to consider when you're buying a house. So it can make it tricky and add more time to your transaction as a result. But I think to your point, you can sub to a plane. It's not a scalable approach where cash can be that for you. So, but you're following the BRRRR method. So can you explain to the audience what the BRRRR method is?
So what the BRRRR method is BRRRR is an acronym. It's buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat the process. So let's use my debt fund, for example. Let's say I see an airplane and it still flies. It's in an airworthy condition. I like it. I want to buy it. I'll put 40 grand cash down. I'll acquire it. I'll fly it back to my rehab facility. And there's a few levers I'll pull depending on what I evaluate to be necessary for that rehab. Let's be easy on this one. Let's say I bought it for $40,000. I rehab it with paint and interior. My all-in cost for paint and interior are $15,000. So 40 plus 15, we're at $55,000 now. I rent the asset out for a minimum of 40 hours at $60 an hour. That's $2,000 a month minimum. That's a minimum lease price. And then I have the value of the aircraft and the lease to make me a very strong borrower to the bank. So the bank then gives me full value of the aircraft, which is $100,000. So I'm up literally $45,000 on this transaction, cash that I can pull out if I wanted to roll right back into another transaction, plus what I initially put in. And then I repeat the process. And that's a high level way of thinking about it. There's a lot more soft costs. There's a lot more calculations that go into this. I get very granular. I calculate my cost of debt. I calculate my cost of capital. I figure out what my return needs to be. I figure out what my time and value spread need to be. I get very granular on my numbers to make sure I'm actually making money and I'm not tricking myself. And then throughout this whole process, I'm also counting my depreciation, my operating expenses, what my accounting needs to be. So there's a lot of people that are involved with this transaction to protect me and to make sure I'm growing properly.
That's cool. Very good. And I think that's signs of a great leader where you have to know what skill sets you need to hire to be complementary to you to meet your, your established goals. Your goal is to keep this professional and bankable. And the reality is when you deal with asset classes that are not real estate, you have to be super cautious and super careful of what you do with your finances. Like, we were vetting out a business in Pennsylvania recently, and that they were, almost a million in revenue. Their take home was supposedly, 200 something thousand dollars, but they were doing a lot of deductions and taking a lot of money from the business. Well, yes, you could do add backs for some of that. However, at the end of the day, they were going to stay on, and if they were going to stay on, they were going to have to make some money, right? And so once we really took a look at it, it's like, oh man, if they hadn't taken all those withdrawals, then this business would have actually been worth something. And at the end of the day, it was actually worth like nothing because the rolls were really like 23K left in it really at the end of the year. And I was like, what? That was crazy to think like you have a revenue of almost $1 million and really your worthiness is the 23K that was left off. And so it's really important that you understand what you're trying to do with your business because that'll dictate the behaviors that you'll take while you're running it. That's why they say start with the end in mind. So to your point, it sounds to me you have a vision to exit this at some point. And so if you want to exit, you have the accrual accounting. It also means that you're not just going to take withdrawals. You're going to be very strategic about how you're going to take your money from the business so that it's worth more in the long run.
Yeah, you couldn't have said it better. I absolutely am building this business to sell it if I want to. Uh, the beauty of the way I'm growing my company is with a 30 to 40 year vision in mind, kind of like China does with their growth perspective. China plans 100, 200, 300 years out, which is phenomenal in my opinion for growth. I'm doing the same exact thing with my company. If I do something today, is it still going to be beneficial 30 years from now? Same with the content that I create, the things that I put out, the business decisions that I make, the kind of debt that I get, even just the consideration of variable debt between fixed debt and where we're currently at in our economic state. Those decisions go a long way when you're borrowing millions of dollars.
Yeah.
So there's a question here that says, what are the financing terms from the bank? Do you want me to answer that?
Yes, absolutely. I was waiting for a pause. That's why I posted it up there just to see what question you or how you can answer that.
All right, ATC Racer, that is a phenomenal question. And the answer is it depends. It depends on your experience because the bank absolutely looks at your character. It looks at your credit. It looks at whether you're going to borrow this on the personal side or the commercial side. It also depends on what bank you go to and if they have experience underwriting aircraft. Your best bet would be to Google AOPA financing. And what they would do is essentially broker a loan for you. So they would go out and search for a bunch of banks for you on which one would serve you best, and they would take a little brokerage fee. And that truly is the best way to get started because the bank's going to ask you a bunch of questions that you are going to conglomerate in a frequently asked question binder, and you're pretty much going to have a loan package ready for each bank. So you can expect 2 years tax returns, your finance statements, your bank statements for your personal side, any W-2s you have, and then clearly the collateral itself, and then all of the information on the collateral. And that's a really good starting point. And from AOPA, you can expect somewhere between 5 to 7 years on the loan with prime +1 or +2 on your terms. That's typically what I'm seeing from AOPA. I get much better rates because I've been doing this a lot longer and I speak their language. But for you, that's honestly a good starting point for an airplane. that's 50 years old. You're asking the bank to take a big risk on you. So when you think about it from that perspective, you really should be happy that they're even willing to loan on you in the first place.
Yeah. Awesome. Wow. That was a lot, guys. That was a lot. I've actually done, and I do think I probably need to do, so myself and my good friend Jeremy Demers, he partnered up with my husband. And I always say I sleep with my lender because my husband's a lender and he's on Jeremy's team. I just think it sounds funny. But it's so interesting. And this is why I say learning real estate is the gateway to entrepreneurship, because it has so many of the fundamentals that are literally transferable skills, right? So everything I heard you say right now is technically everything a good borrower would need to package up, regardless of whether they're doing a business or whether they're doing real estate. So, myself and Jeremy, we did an episode in Sub 2 where we called it Don't Be a Lending Loser. Basically, if you want people to lend you money and you don't want to be a loser of that, like here's all the things that you would typically have to package up. And yes, it's admin work, but put it in your calendar that every quarter, for example, you're going to update it, right? And obviously, you probably have to update it once a month because you're buying so many planes, which is amazing. But one of the things you say in there is, you have to have your articles of organization, your LLCs, your EINs. You said financial statement. I've not had to do a comprehensive financial statement because most of my banks have been like hard money lenders. And whether we realize it or not, a lot of hard money lenders actually deal with private money. So they don't have like a comprehensive expectation like a bank does. And today I was talking to a bank because we're trying to get, lines of credit for a rent to own program we're doing out Ohio and West Virginia. And he's like, I need a personal finance statement. And I'm like, oh, damn, I never had to do that before. And so now I'm even going through a new experience because I've only ever had to do an experience statement, like how many flips have I done? How many properties do I rent? What kind of experience did each of what those have? And so like a financial statement, like that takes a minute. You actually have to likely reach out to your bookkeeper or slash CPA, put something together. So again, if you want to up level yourself, I was talking to somebody in Sub 2 recently. I was like, if you want to be a rich person, you got to do what rich people do, and they prepare. Rich people prepare. They need to have all of these things organized and ready to go. So when luck has it, you're ready to move along with it before it sees you go by. So again, real estate, very relatable to other asset classes. I would presume then you have a buy box. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So if I wanted to see your buy box, where would one look at that?
So I've got essentially a post on my Instagram that I keep up on there all the time that shows what I'm looking for in an aircraft. And I keep it very simple. And the reason I do that is I want anybody and everybody to be able to gather some very simple information and allow me as the asset manager to do the real deep diving. And it really does take a level of experience to look at it the way I look at it.
Mm-hmm.
So what I do is I put out very elementary information to look for. If you scroll down, you'll see what the buy box is in a template. So scroll all the way down.
All the way down?
Yeah,
Bro, you're missing out.
I
I gotta
know.
keep
I got to
scrolling.
get
You need to
caught
pin
up.
this bitch. Okay, hold on. Scrolling, scrolling,
Right
scrolling.
there, the one that's right, the one that looks like a flyer. There you go.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the piece of information that somebody would take away to submit a deal.
Correct.
Okay. But you're specifically looking for Cessnas?
Yes, Cessnas and PA-28s primarily. Every now and then we come across a deal that's way too good to pass up, and we'll try and wholesale it. But
Mhm.
this is my primary focus is Cessna 172s and PA 28s. And when I say PA 28s, there's a bunch of different makes and models, if you will. There's Cherokees, Warriors, Archers. So I just say PA 28s just so I can do the sorting.
Okay, you're speaking plain. It means nothing to me. But these are all models of what you're looking for.
Correct.
Okay. So we have a question from Ben. And I love that he actually has a picture of him piloting. So I hope he's enjoying this episode. So what's the target cash flow on a standard? Is C Cessna 172? Yes, it has to
Yeah,
be.
that's a Cessna.
To a flight school.
So that's a very specific question based on how me and the flight school structure that lease. So I need to conform to their cash flow cycles. So what I mean by that is my lease needs to actually meet the intended goal of keeping the flight school profitable and in business. So let's say I do a structured lease. Q1, I'll do a lease that's $2,000 a month with no upside. Q2, I'll step it up to $2,400 a month. Q3, when they're stabilized and their cash flow can sustain it, we'll go to a full lease, which is a minimum lease price of, let's say, 50 hours minimum at $70 an hour with a minimum of 50 hours. And anything above that, I'm capturing the full lease of $70 an hour. And that is an example of how I would conform to the school. It would make, now I could absolutely sell the most expensive lease on planet Earth to flight schools. I could, and it doesn't work for them, which in turn doesn't work for me. So I always look at the cash flow and the financials of my schools. Just like a bank looks at credit from you when you go borrow an asset, I do the same with my flight schools. And it's not because I don't want to work with them. It's because I want them to survive. And a lot of the times they're not ready for another airplane based off of the optimization of their fleet. And what I mean by that is they're not utilizing what they have already strategically. And I have to say, hey, I would love to sell you this lease. And in fact, I'd probably make a lot of money off of you because you can technically afford it, but it wouldn't serve you for the long run. So what Chris is going to do is defer payment to Chris. I don't want to get paid from you, but what I would like to do is check in on a monthly basis and implement these techniques to make your school more money. And then if I've provided enough value in 6 months from now, let's talk about another airplane, maybe even 2. But let's make you money first based off of what you already have, so you're not meeting a goal that's not conducive to the future.
Wow. That's fantastic. So you will actually consult a flight school to better up their rev, so that you're basically creating your own demand.
Exactly. And I truly want the flight school to grow, because if they're looking at a 10 to 15 year horizon and I put them into a lease that truly does make them more money, they really come to me with all their problems. I'm like their flight school therapist. It's like, hey, Chris, I'm having these problems. I have this problem. Billing's not coming through. Then we start talking about a paid up front model. Let's look at loan structures. Let's look at liquidity. Let's look at your current ratios. Let's look at your debt to equity ratio. Let's do a full checkup on your financials. And a lot of that leads into operations and marketing and sales. But it starts with the balance sheet and the income statement. And it truly does make a world of difference when you pull little levers that make them more money without you asking for anything in return.
Yeah, that makes 1,000%. I really like this post too, where you compare the airplane versus property's passive income showdown. That's awesome. So this is giving you that perspective. Can you depreciate planes, by the way?
100% yes. But guys, if you're going to be doing that shit, you need to be prepared for that recapture if this is not your business forever. And what I mean by that is if you depreciate an airplane today, year one, and you enjoy all this extra cash flow, and then you're like, I'm tired of airplanes, I'm going to sell it in year 3, you're getting taxed at ordinary income, which is extremely oppressive. I mean, am I wrong?
No, I would think not. So,
Yeah.
but you so it sounds to me like airplanes are like real estate in that it's a marathon, not a sprint. So, if you're gonna commit, you know, you better commit, right? So,
Yes.
it's for the
Yes.
long
Yes.
run.
Yes. Get married to the game.
That's right. Wow, so look at the stats. So your cash flow potential per unit, so per plane, is 3 to 6,000 a month per plane. So you are planning on doing 1,000 planes. So conservatively, if we were to use the 3,000 mark, um, that's crazy. So you're
And
talking
that's
about
the
3
only
million
way. Yes,
a
that's
month.
the only way you should be building performance is off the guarantee, never the contingencies.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. I'm a conservative kind of girl. So, but that's crazy because everything else is cherry. Wow. Wow. That's cool. And then when you say they're covered by triple net leases by the lessee, how do you make sure that that is being conformed to?
So the beauty of this industry is it's self-governing in terms of how scrutinized we are by the FAA. So if
Mhm.
you're a flight school, government regulations keep you honest for the most part. Are there unscrupulous lessees out there? Absolutely. I've dealt with a few of them who try to cheat on maintenance. But me having an aircraft maintenance background hedges against that risk. So that's actually a really good question.
Mhm.
You say, hey, Chris, how do I make sure someone's not cheating on maintenance? Well, how I do it is I make sure they send me a picture of the logbook entry and the mechanic who signs off on it. I make sure I'm in constant contact with him. Is it a lot
Mhm.
of work? Absolutely. But I've been doing aircraft maintenance for 15 years. So if someone says something to me that doesn't sound right, I get into pilot examiner mode and I'm like, I'm not saying you're wrong, but
Mhm.
can you show me in the book where it said to do that or where it said to sign it off this way? Or what regulation allowed you to go past your hours on this? Because it looks
Mhm.
like you just busted a reg here by doing your 100 hours 3 hours late, knowing you had maintenance on the field. And then they're like, oh shit, this guy knows. They start doing the carpet dance.
Mhm.
But you,
Yeah.
if you don't keep up with the maintenance on your airplane, your value of that aircraft goes significantly down. So they unequivocally have to protect your asset.
Okay, that's awesome. And so do you write in some special like, when I rent my properties out, I put on there, "Hey, every quarter, I'm gonna be going to your property and we're gonna make sure like your filters have been replaced, that the house isn't being trashed, that it looks good." Um, is that something that then like, you're building into that triple net lease then?
Yes, absolutely. I actually have a lease conforming checklist. I literally have a checklist for the lease to ensure certain clauses are in there, depending on certain structures that I do with flight schools. So I quite literally go down a paperwork checklist by
Mhm,
time it comes time for closing, if you will, when we're about to close on the lease.
mhm. That's cool. Wow. And so somebody like me who, I come into contact with a lot of people, but I don't know crap about airplanes. Only thing I know about an airplane is I'm shaking in my boots because we're supposed to go on a plane on Monday and do your podcast. And, I'm a data girl and I think I told you this. And like, okay, I know that the only planes that really go down are these smaller planes. So I'm a little freaked out. Um so with wanting to maybe, help you get to your goals, how could somebody like help get you these deals? Like what is typical way? Because for me, again, I know a lot of people. I'm cool to be like, hey guys, if you come across a plane, let me know. I gotta connect, right? So what's a realistic approach for somebody maybe wanting to send you opportunities?
A realistic approach would be to send the deal through sub2planes.com and
Mhm.
then follow up. There has been so much deal flow that I've literally had to hire full-time staff to keep up, which is not a bad thing to have. That's actually awesome. But with different levels, you have different devils. And the devils that I'm dealing with right now are growing pains on outside deals coming in, when traditionally it was me doing all the legwork with deal analysis, deal
Mhm.
underwriting, deal finding, deal structuring,
Yeah.
matching up the capital with the asset, putting the asset to work in a lease. That was all me. And now I'm delegating and then elevating so I can grow my company. So I'm going through
Mm.
these growing pains right now.
So what do you think is the talent that you're, next seeking? What's that next person for you?
That next person's probably going to be a CMO, somebody who's a marketing expert that can pull eyeballs in 24/7, 365 on a business to business side. This isn't your typical business to consumer product. It's a
Yeah.
product that is literally meant to make another company a lot of money. So it's somebody that needs to understand the financial markets, debt structuring, cash flow analysis, uh, how to truly make another company money and present it in that manner. A lot of people think I'm in the leasing business. That's not true. I'm in the financing business. I underwrite my lessees just like a bank underwrites someone looking to borrow money for a car. So I focus way more on capital structures than I do airplanes. My airplane stuff is on autopilot. There's plenty of airplanes out there.
Ta-da-ta-da.
Yeah,
Sorry,
literally.
that was clearly a plain pun, but okay, sorry.
No, you're good. It's important for people to know that, though. I'm really in the finance business. If you really think about it.
Mhm. I love that. Okay, so the tactical stuff that has to do with the planes and, the plane staying in the air, that's taken care of, but what the part that really drives you sounds like is, like, where the money makes sense. So, interesting. I actually know a fractional CMO, and I'm wondering if that's a good approach for you to start to see, like, what does somebody like that could do for you. And I know that they're looking for right matches. Anyways, I can connect you with them if that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm always willing to have that conversation, and at the very least, making a new connection is never a bad thing, because just because you're not right for me doesn't mean you're not right for the other guy that I know.
Yeah, totally. Ben was also putting a joke in. Autopilot, ha. How's work going? Well, it has its ups and downs. Obviously, plain jokes,
Plain
or
jokes.
maybe pilot jokes are the same equation of a dad joke, but anyway. Well, cool,
Yes.
and I think you told me that you've been, like, traveling, like, I'm assuming piloting? Or have you been piloting?
Yeah, so I'm an international airline pilot. So guys, that's my side job, my super side job. I fly internationally as an FO with a company called Omni Air International. Last week I was in from October 1st to like the 10th. I was in Bogota, I was in Brazil, I was in Puerto Rico, Baltimore, Ireland, Jacksonville, Florida, literally all over the world.
That's awesome. I'm from Colombia, so, but I'm from Cali, not Bogota, so
Okay, I kind of didn't. I almost quit my job in Bogota to stay there.
Right,
Pilots, if
did
you're
you
out here
love it?
listening to this, Bogota is the place to go.
Yeah, all the
I
beautiful
love
ladies are
I
there,
love
yes.
Colombia, and the food and everything is it's cost effective. You can walk everywhere. The street vendors are amazing. People just it's a simple life, and I like
So
that.
when you do this flying, you get to stay where you fly to?
Yeah, so I was in Bogota for 3 days. Was in Brazil for a couple days. Was in Ireland for a couple days, and it really conforms well to what I do, and it's
Mhm.
awesome. I'm very connected still with where I go. There's Wi-Fi everywhere. The world's very connected. Um, the time that I'm actually in the plane doing the pilot stuff is maybe 10% of the 90% of the time I'm on the road. So I'm still able to fully run my business on the road.
Yes, arguably, like, I bought most of my assets when I still had a W-2. As they say, if you want to get something done, give it to a busy person. I feel like when you have a W-2, if you really want it bad enough, you just figure out like what makes sense. But I think that that's anybody who has a really strong vision of what that next level looks for them, that instead of finding excuses, they find the time, right? So it's interesting because people constantly were asking me then, they still ask me now, like, hey, how do you do all these events and how do you, connect with so many people and still do your thing? And I go, I don't Netflix, right? Like I don't ever watch TV. I don't really watch a lot of entertainment stuff other than when I do have to do my death scrolling on like my Instagram and Facebook. But I feel like that's like my, what do you call it? Like my downtime. But if you have a W-2 or if you have these other really strong hobbies or other side hustles like Chris does, you really shouldn't have an excuse. And your calendar will dictate whether or not you're going to be successful. That's something I've taken away from Pace, where he's like, every Sunday, you got to look at your calendar. What does your calendar look like? If it doesn't have a lot of green money making activity, well, then you ain't going to make money. Like it comes down to that. Sure, you're going to have admin stuff. Sure, you're going to have like time for family, and integrate as much as you can into your life. But at the end of the day, are you making time for the things that's going to pay you? So interesting.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. It's more so, what can you do with your time that's going to make you the most money, and then pass all that other shit off to other people.
Yep.
All of it. And I'm a huge fan of Dan Martell with buying back your time. I'm not cheap when it comes to getting service work done around the home, so I can utilize that time to create a lease or cold call a flight school, or do something that's going to generate money that subsidizes that cost, so I can do more of this.
I love it. And then Caleb, he says he has a W-2 and he's buying a plane next week. So that's so awesome. Caleb, let us know, are you using the BRRRR method like what Chris is doing? I'm just curious. Which is super cool. Like I'm doing a lot of BRRRRs out in the Midwest. So I still believe in the BRRRR method, but it's just not in all markets. But I'm glad to see it's something that can be done in different asset class, which is super cool. Yep, Caleb is doing cash. Well done. And Caleb, are you also leasing it out? That's another curiosity. Just did he learn from you, Chris? Do you know who Caleb Miles is, or I just happened to capture him here?
Yeah, Caleb Miles is an awesome dude. He actually came out to my ranch. He's been here at the rehab facility, so he's been working towards this for a few months now, and he's about to close his first deal. So congrats to Caleb. You're kicking ass, brother. Proud of you.
That's so awesome. And so you said you took 6 people on, is that right? Like you're teaching them how to do this?
Yes.
That's so cool.
The beauty of what I'm doing is being very specific with my avatar mentee. And I was very specific on what I would and would not do. And I trafficked the right people to my program, and they're already getting shit done. My buddy Mike Palmer, he's been in the program 4 days, and he's a cash buyer. He's a high net worth cat. But within 4 days, he said, man, I couldn't sleep, so I bought a damn airplane. And he utilized everything I gave him. And I'm like, dude, Mike, let's get it leased up now, bro. I mean, we got another 11 weeks. Let's do another 11.
That's so cool.
Let's get you paid, Mike.
Yeah. So those planes that you had that, you said completed and in progress, are those deals that you're looking to just like process through the deals you have going on, or you're actually selling them? Like, are you selling to any of these mentees? I'm just curious, like what your strategies look like on the acquisition side.
So on the acquisition side, I figure out what I do want to buy, what's not worth buying, because there's some serious problems with some of these airplanes that get sent to me.
Yeah.
I wouldn't recommend anybody buying because they're not safe airplanes, even if you were to rehab them. So those ones I completely scratch, and if I can wholesale the deal, I'll tie it up and assign it. It's exactly like real estate. You've got equitable title.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, that's cool. So you put these under contract, you you sell them, and really it's up to the end buyer to really do their due diligence on the safety of the plane, like what maintenance it looks like it needs, all the things that are very typical even on the real estate side.
Correct. And it's totally up to the end buyer. There's no warranties or promises of condition. It truly is an as is, where is. And we're very transparent. I'm like, look, dude, we got this deal locked up. If you want it, you go do your pre-purchase inspection. You go handle it. You go tow it to your facility or fly it or get a special fare permit. We are only capitalizing on my proprietary deal flow to sell you a below market deal, and we're taking a small spread.
Right on. Now, I plan on copying this link to this YouTube video and sending it to those people that I tagged you on. They keep saying they're on a mission to save enough money to get a jet. So I just find it's interesting, especially if maybe even a sub 2 version of this, right? Because they're not necessarily scaling a big model, like a finance slash leasing model like yours. I wonder if they know that that's even a possibility.
It is a possibility, but when you get into the jet market, particularly aircraft that are certified under Part 25, you have to go through very serious inspections every 72 months. And that inspection, I mean, we're talking a couple $1,000,000 depending on the jet. You have APU inspections, landing gear inspections, hot section inspections. I mean, we're talking astronomical amounts of money for maintenance. So when you look at a jet, you're like, oh man, I can afford that jet at 700 grand. It's like, no. That's just a sticker price. The operating cost of that jet for fuel, crew, your average stage length of the aircraft, your operational expectations, your routes that you're typically going to fly, there's so much more to incorporate into the ownership of that jet. That's why it's people figure it out pretty quick once they buy a jet. If they don't get with the right broker to tell them this is why you don't want this jet. That's what a good jet broker should do for you guys. If you have a jet broker that's trying to sell you anything and everything, that's not the guy for you. You want a guy that's trying to kill that deal for you. That's when you know he's really looking out for your best interest.
Wow. Wow. Actually, before I forget, because Caleb just triggered this. Okay, so I know they're looking for a jet. I'm still gonna send them this because it sounds like they may want to get a Cessna instead. But what I thought was really crazy about their Instagram videos is that every time they clean these jets, it's like 10, 13, $15,000 to clean these jets for what the kind of work that they're doing. And I'm like, maybe I want to go be a jet cleaner. My God, like that is a ridiculous amount of money they're making on these like jet cleans, which is crazy, crazy. But they're even flying to go clean the jets, which is interesting. But anyways, you said you're a fund, so I'm not suggesting you capital raise here. But like, so if you are a fund, are you always actively looking to raise for that fund? And I assume people have to be accredited investors.
The answer is yes. I'm always looking for accredited investors or people who could potentially get in on the equity side. I prefer debt because it's a little cleaner and we can break paths a lot easier than sharing equity. But there's many different ways we can get involved on the finance side or the aircraft side, or just shoot the shit and talk airplanes.
Lovely. So, okay. So if is there a again, because I don't know all the SEC rules, but like if you were raising for your fund, is there something you can communicate about what it pays?
That I prefer not to get into details on because I haven't really discussed it in detail on the language that I need to be using. But if you want information on a macro level to where we can discuss the potentials, you can hit me up at Chris Does Deals on
Okay.
Instagram.
So if somebody wants to get into your fund and like you said, you're paying a return year round, then they really should connect with you privately. And again, guys, you'd have to make sure you're accredited investor. There's like funds have all kinds of weird stuff and you want to be careful. Like I just did my first debt club because I can't help myself. I talk too much. So I feel like I may say the wrong thing. I was like, let's start with the club. Let me get like comfortable with the language of what I can and cannot say, so that then if I do put my foot in my mouth, I'm not in big trouble. But and in clubs, everyone's an active member. It's almost like saying everybody's a GP in a club, because everybody, votes on. Do you guys all like the operating agreement? Did you? Okay, now we're gonna go and renovate. We go with white or off-white paint. What do you what do you guys think we should go? So you have to constantly be active with the people who are in the club. So anyway, super cool. Well, it sounds to me that if anybody wants to get a hold of you, you're super active on your Instagram, to go to Chris does deals on Instagram, which is a great handle. And there, your team or yourself would be able to communicate with them, whether they want to get some more information on your fund or see what it takes to sell you a deal. Although sub2plane.com is still a really great place to go. Lots of information on there, which was amazing. So this is really, really cool. They say the riches are in the niches. So it sounds like this is your niche. What if somebody wants to send you land, just because I don't want to completely, skip that? Do they send it to your Instagram too?
Yeah, absolutely. Send it to my Instagram. If you're going to send me a land deal, though, I am very aggressive on getting very large deals in. I wouldn't recommend you send me 10 to 20 acre parcels. I'm looking at 500 to 1,000 acre parcels, because what I do is I create a fund and I take down the land all at once. I'll put it under contract on 180-day due diligence, and then I'll split the land up prior to sailing. And I won't close on the land if I don't have the majority of the principal balance paid off with the sections of land that we've carved out of it. So I've done this quite a few times and I've done fairly well. That's how I initially had my first capital injection into the leasing company. But land is, I'm not going to call it high risk, guys, but it doesn't cash flow. It definitely appreciates, but it does not cash flow. That's your biggest risk with land. So that's why I needed something that cash flowed. I'm like, all right, I'm doing good at land, but you never know when something's going to go crazy and you're going to have to service that debt for a couple of years and ride it out.
Yeah, while you're busy getting it entitled and prepping with rubbing elbows with the city governments just to get things done. Yeah,
Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense.
I'm going through then.
Yeah. Oh, I would presume. Yeah. I mean, goodness, I'm struggling on a fix and flip that I've kept for way too long. So I totally understand. I'm like the city of Flagstaff, so I get it for sure. Well, thank you so much, Chris. I really appreciate you coming on to the podcast and showing people that a lot of the principles that you learn in real estate can really be translated. So hopefully this opens up people's minds on just how much abundance is out there. You just have to get creative.
If there's anything I can leave you guys with, it's you truly can create wealth without cash. I wish I had Pace Morby's book a lot sooner. I would have gotten to this a lot quicker, because that fear of not having cash keeps the majority of future entrepreneurs completely out of the game. Get your ass out there, find a deal, close on that shit, and bring it to somebody who's doing this. You guys are missing out on abundance. The harvest is plenty, but the laborers are few. Become a laborer. That's my challenge to you.
Awesome. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Chris. I loved this new time. Hopefully, once we socialize it a bit more, we'll have more folks checking out this podcast. And again, we're here every Wednesday. And next week, we'll be here at 5 p.m. Arizona time. We're going to talk about creative listing. And I can't wait till we have planes available on creative listing so that you can come and check out what's available. So thank you, Chris. Thank you, everybody. Again, don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you guys next week.